I'm honored to be included in telling these stories. But first I want to say my own word of gratitude to Edwin, and I'm sorry Kate's not here, but we're grateful her family is here for this lasting impression they have made on us and on this community with their art. And so just very, very grateful to you, Edwin. I've been asked to talk about Sandra. Sandra's up here in this corner. Most of you know Sandra as our soup kitchen director. I met Sandra 25 years ago when we were in the depot building. This building didn't exist. And it was about the second week that we were open in December of 1994. And we had a contract with a security company to provide a security officer for us. And I think it was the first week we had a gentleman who was with us, and then the second week he didn't show up, and this woman walks in the door and she says, "I'm your security officer." She had on this uniform with a badge and a necktie, and it was Sandra. Sandra was our security officer. Little did I know how qualified she was to be a security officer. She had a unique way of keeping order. And so I told Sandra, I said, I'm not sure exactly what the best strategy is for security here, but why don't you just periodically walk around the building? And she would do that. She'd walk around, just make sure everything was going okay, but then she'd disappear. And I'd say, where did the security officer go? And every single time I would find her, where? In the kitchen. She was in our kitchen, and she was giving instructions to our soup kitchen director and all of our volunteers the best way to make soup for 300 people. And so right away we realized Sandra had a special gift for food. And so when our soup kitchen director retired, we hired another soup kitchen director, but we hired Sandra to be the assistant soup kitchen director. And she has a unique talent, for those of you who've been around or been in the kitchen with her. I don't think she's ever read a cookbook in her life. I don't think she's ever measured anything in her life. And yet she makes this amazing soup that everybody enjoys. And I remember after she had become the soup kitchen director, the Charlotte Observer came down and wanted to do a story about the soup kitchen. And so they asked Sandra for her recipe for soup. And Sandra tends to think pretty literally. So she wrote down her recipe, which included 12 pounds of carrots, 17 cans of tomato sauce. And anyway, I think the Observer was thinking they would get this recipe that they could print in the paper and then people could make great soup at home, but it was a recipe for 300. And so that was Sandra's way. And so if you come in here any day of the week, you'll find Sandra sitting right here. As all our guests come in to get their lunch, Sandra knows just about every single person. And if anybody decides they like lunch so much that they go get in line to come back a second time, she will remember them. And she will let them know that we don't have seconds for everybody. But Sandra has been here as long as I've been here, 25 years, and she continues to make her mark. She continues to care for not only the people who come to eat here, but all of the people who come to serve in our soup kitchen. And she has made remarkable relationships through the years and has represented us very, very well. And so I'm grateful for Sandra. I wish she was here today. I don't know where she is, but I'm not surprised she's not here because we're going to talk about her. So that's why I know she's not here. Before I conclude, I just want to say a couple of things about what this is all about today. Because I've had my own experiences with Faces of Diversity. Having grown up as a kid in Oklahoma, I lived with lots of Native Americans. And as a kid in high school, I worked at an Indian store where I was the only non-Indian working there. And I learned a lot about Native Americans in that job. And they would gather there. It was a gathering place as well as a store. And they would talk tribal politics and all kinds of things that caused me to learn about people that I didn't know under any other circumstance. Later in my life, I was blessed as a Baptist seminary student to work at a Jewish community center, which was kind of unusual, and went from working there at a Catholic college. Then I came to Charlotte, and as a kid who had grown up in poverty, I became a pastor to a bunch of millionaires. And after being a pastor with rich people, I came to the Urban Ministry Center to work with people who were struggling with homelessness. So I feel like my whole journey has been about diversity. And what I have learned is that we're all alike. The work I did at the Catholic University, the work I did at the Church with Rich People, the work I do at the Urban Ministry Center, it's all the same work. Every single one of us wants to be loved. Every one of us wants to belong. Every one of us wants to be respected. Every one of us wants to be safe. Every one of us wants to contribute. And the risk is, if we spend all of our lives with people just like ourselves, we're guaranteed two outcomes: ignorance and arrogance. We will not know who our neighbors are, and we will start to think that my life is the center of the universe. So the faces of diversity are essential to the well-being of all of us. And what we've learned over and over again here at the Urban Ministry Center is that when we come together with people who may look different than us and whose stories may sound different than us, we discover once again we're all alike. Our common humanity is not something we need to create or advocate for. It's just something we need to acknowledge is the truth. And so I'm especially honored today that we've put this mosaic up here as a reminder. And so every time you walk in this room, I hope you will look at it and think, we are in this life together. And the well-being of the richest among us and the well-being of the poorest among us is inextricably tied together. And one of our lives is not complete if the other's life is not complete also. So I'm grateful for your support, that you're here, and that we get to celebrate this wonderful symbol. Thank you very much.